Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're going to love me in Karen Hunter is Awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of The Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. Oh, Joel, I can't even. I'm in a not a strange mood. I'm usually super frustrated is what I am. I'm sitting here like we have the Keystone Cops running the country. Like these are the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life, in charge of everybody's everything.
What are we? Are completely unserious. It is. I don't even understand. I don't watch the news. I just, I get the news randomly. But I couldn't avoid this. He was texting with his besties, national security secrets.
Okay, so for people, and we didn't get into this yesterday. I mean, I had it on my script. Now I now have 80 pages of a script. But apparently the head of our military was texting about a war, like bombing another nation, and somehow tagged in the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. And he's in the parking lot, like, are these texts? Is this Marco Rubio? Like, who? So I'm going to actually read the Atlantic piece because he wrote a whole op-ed on what happened. His name, of all things, is wait, what the hell? What is his name? It's like the guy from Wicked. Jeff Goldberg is his name. I was like, is this the Wicked guy? Okay. Is this the Wizard of Oz? It must be. Okay. So his name is Jeff Goldberg. And he writes, the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. This is going to require some explaining. The story technically begins shortly after the Hamas invasion of southern Israel in October 2023. The Houthis, an Iran-backed terrorist organization whose motto is God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam, soon launched attacks on Israel and on international shipping, creating havoc for global trade. I'm sure that's really the problem. This is Karen, the aside. All right. Throughout 2024, the Biden administration was ineffective in countering these Houthi attacks. The incoming Trump administration promised a tougher response. This is where Pete Hegseth and I come in. On Tuesday, March 11th, I received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Michael Waltz. Signal is an open source encrypted messaging service popular with journalists and others who seek more privacy than other text messaging services are capable of delivering. I assumed that the Michael Waltz in question was President Donald Trump's national security advisor. I did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Michael Waltz. I have met him in the past, and though I didn't find it particularly strange that he might be reaching out to me, I did think it somewhat unusual given the Trump administration's contentious relationship with journalists and Trump's periodic fixation on me specifically. It immediately crossed my mind that someone could be masquerading as Waltz in order to somehow entrap me. It is not at all uncommon these days for nefarious actors to try to induce journalists to share information that could be used against them. So what has been happening, this is me talking, is that they would feed bad information so that the journalists would report, and then they would say the journalists is fake, delivering fake news. We're in some strange times right now. Okay. I can't even explain and express to you how dangerous this is. Okay. I'm going to continue. He said, I accepted the connection request, hoping that this was the actual national security advisor and that he wanted to chat about Ukraine or Iran or some other important matter. 2 days later, Thursday at 4:28 p.m., I received a notice that I was to be included in a Signal chat group. It was called the Houthis PC Small Group. A message to the group from quote-unquote Michael Walls read as follows. Team, establishing a principles, and he spelled it wrong.
Of course he did.
So they had to put sick, S-I-C, to let you know that this is the exact spelling. I'm not a dumbass. I know how to spell. I have spell check. I got Grammarly. Somehow they don't. He spelled it wrong. Establishing a principles group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. Even that's a grammatical. Okay. My deputy, Alex Wong, is pulling together a tiger team at deputies/agency chief of staff level, following up from the meeting in the SIT room, which is the situation room, this morning for action items, and we'll be sending that out later this evening. He said the message, this is Goldberg, the message continued. Please provide the best staff POC from your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple days, and over the weekend. Thanks. THX, period. All right. The term principals committee generally refers to a group of, and he spelled principals correct in his, because he's writing. He's actually a writer. 866-801-8255. So he writes, the term principals committee generally refers to a group of the senior most national security officials, including the secretaries of defense, secretaries of state, the treasury, as well as the director of the CIA. It should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that I have never been invited to a White House principals committee, and principals is P-A-L. This man spelled it differently. Principals committee meeting, and that in my many years of reporting on national security matters, I had never heard of one being convened over a commercial messaging app. 1 minute later, a person identified as MAR, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, oh my God, wrote Mike Needham for state, apparently designating the current counselor of the State Department as his representative. At the same moment, a Signal user identified as JD Vance wrote Andy Baker for VP. 1 minute later, TG, presumably Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. Oh, what a oxymoronic. All right. National intelligence or something masquerading as her wrote Joe Kent for DNI. 9 minutes later, Scott B, apparently Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, or someone spoofing his identity. So all along, Goldberg is thinking this is some bull crap, and I'm being punked, and they're playing me and they're pulling me in. At 4:53 p.m., a user called Pete Hegseth wrote Dan Caldwell for DOD, and 6:34 p.m., Brian wrote Brian McCormack for NSC. One more person responded. John Ratcliffe wrote 5:24 p.m. with the name of a CIA official to be included in the group. I am not publishing that name because that person is an active intelligence officer. All of this is on the thing, and it goes on. The principals had apparently assembled, and all 18 individuals were listed. Members of this group included the National Security Council officials, and he rattles off their names. That was the end of Thursday's text chain. After receiving the Walls text related to the Houthi PC small group, I consulted a number of colleagues. They discussed the possibilities that this might be a hoax, that this might be a problem, and I had very strong doubts that this text group was real, because I could not believe that the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans. I also could not believe that the national security advisor to the president would be so reckless as to include the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in such discussions with the senior U.S. officials. up to and including the vice president. The next day, things got even stranger. 8:05 a.m. on Friday, March 14th, Michael Waltz texted the group, "Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per the president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes." High side, and he puts this in parentheses, in government parlance, refers to classified computer and communication systems. State and DOD, the text continues, "We developed suggested notification lists for regional allies and partners," and it goes on and on. At this point, a fascinating policy discussion commenced. The account labeled JD Vance responded, "Team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake." You want to jump in? Did you raise your hand? Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay, well, let me finish this. Let me finish this last sentence. Okay. He said, "But I think we're making a mistake. So JD Vance didn't think we should be doing this, right?" In parentheses, Vance was indeed in Michigan that day because he checked, because he's a journalist. He said, Vance account goes on to state 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this and why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. The Vance account then goes on to make a noteworthy statement considering that the vice president has not deviated publicly from Trump's position. He said, "I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc." And it goes on. This actually was a real group chat. This actually happened.
It sounds like television. It sounds like you can't. These people. So Pete Hegseth has an IMDb. I do not want the head of the United States military to be on IMDb as an actor, writer, and producer. I don't want that.
Joe, why not? What could go wrong? What could be the problem?
This is what happens when you replace DEI with DUI. This is exactly what happens.
Yeah, I've heard that he's a DUI. So here's, so the Senate, so we're supposed to have 3 branches of government. We're supposed to have checks and balances. Yeah. So there was a hearing today, and they had to talk before the Senate. I don't know what they could possibly do to them, but I'm going to play a couple of clips. First is from Michael Bennett, who is a Democrat from Colorado. He was questioning the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, on this whole debacle, and it got a little heated. Take a listen.
Why didn't you call out that he was present on the Signal thread?
I don't know if you use Signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting.
Well, neither
not
do I,
for
Senator.
Anything remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible to use.
I agree that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting, not for classified information.
And I said I don't either.
I also know Jeff Goldberg. I don't use it to communicate with him, but you thought it was appropriate. By the way, I think he's one of the more outstanding journalists in America. But I'm shocked to find him on a thread that he's reading in the parking lot of a grocery store in Washington, D.C. And your testimony as the director of the CIA is that it's totally appropriate. No. Is it appropriate?
No,
the
Director, that is not what I...
Okay,
when did
go
I say
ahead,
it was?
please.
When did I use the word appropriate?
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I didn't.
That everybody in America.
So clearly,
there's nothing to
Senator,
see here is what your testimony is.
No, I never said that.
This is just a normal day at the CIA where we chat about this kind of stuff over Signal. In fact, it's so normal that the last administration left it here for us. That's your testimony today.
That's your testimony.
No, that's
Senator.
not my testimony. That's what you said.
I didn't say any of those things that you just related, Senator.
I heard you say it. We'll let the American people decide. God, let me ask you one final point. I'm out of time.
It. Well, are you going to give me a chance?
Is it appropriate? Did you know that the president's Middle East advisor was in Moscow on this thread while you were, as director of the CIA, participating in this thread? Were you aware of that? Are you aware of that today?
I'm not aware of that
this
today.
Sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment.
Senator,
you need to do better. You need to do better.
That's the most backbone I've heard from the Democrats in Congress in a long time.
Oh my God. So Jeff Goldberg, editor-in-chief at The Atlantic, went to the same college as the president. So they can't say they've been trying to call him a dummy and all these other things, and he's incompetent. But it's projection, really. It's projection. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. He started his career at the Washington Post. He worked at the Jerusalem Post. He was at the New York Bureau of the Forward. He was a contributing editor at New York Magazine. He was a contributing writer at the New York Times Magazine. He joined the New Yorker back in 2000. He's been doing this for a while. He was a columnist for Bloomberg View. He joined the Atlantic as editor-in-chief in 2016 after leaving Bloomberg. This is not a lightweight. This is not a lightweight journalist at all. He was a journalist for these newspapers before they were taken over by Nazis or, let me see, people who don't care about people. Before these papers were taken over by billionaires who don't care about people, he was actually working as a journalist, and he couldn't imagine. And so all the people saying, maybe this was a setup, you don't set yourself up to look this stupid. This looks incompetent.
It actually, I mean, like I said, what could go wrong, right? We've got somebody who has a IMDb running the Department of Defense, right? Because he was an Army veteran and a Fox News host, right? That would be like me just going down to the gas station and be like, you should be our Mideast oil.
Right, you run a Shell. You run a Shell.
You know a little bit about stuff. Like this is, but I mean, Karen, this just reminds me of the idea that, on the TV show Atlanta, there's that quote on there where he says, white men have been doing the same thing that they've always been doing, anything that they want. Like this, somebody told me once, and I told my wife this all the time, to walk through the world with the confidence of an average white man, because that's what we're dealing with right now, right? We're not dealing with like the person who knows how to do stuff. We're walking through somewhere where people they mistake competence for skill all the time. These people, and this is what happens.
I think that argument puts us in a place where we get to dismiss this, and I guess my question to the people listening and to you, like, what do we do about this? Because the fact that we have people waging war over an app that they can mistakenly do over group chat and tag people in that should not know any of this information does not engender any confidence that this country is not vulnerable. And it's not just the people inside, people outside are watching. We have allies that depend on us being strong and consistent and, reliable, who no longer can rely on us. You have, NATO nations now saying we can't rely on the United States of America. So France, England, all it. And listen, and in some stories, there are no good guys. That's what Dr. Carr says all the time. And I believe this is one of those. But this is not about average white men. There's something more diabolical going on. This is not just about mediocre white men. This is not just about, white men that are incompetent. There's something greater going on here. And we're all, even the mediocre, will be impacted by the outcomes here. So we're in this boat together.
I know. And the reason that these folks are even remotely close to any halls of power is because they're taint sniffers, right? They are the people who basically spent all of these years using whatever platform they had to boost Donald Trump, right? This is what they've done, right? And he is rewarding those people who are unqualified and people who don't have, like we have a whole rash of Supreme Court justices who are not qualified, right? This is what they do, right? They put the people in. They say these things all the time about ideology, like the left has this ideology and the left are all sheep, but these people have no unique ideas. They have no
Okay,
interest.
but
They just
that's still
they parrot the same stuff over and over. That mean, but my point is, Karen, is that they're vapid, right? They don't.
okay, but that doesn't get us to where we need to be right now. So, like,
I
yes,
don't
we can
know.
sit here for 3 hours and list the incompetence of this, but I believe there's something more. There's an opportunity here. So it made me think about this. A guy pulls up today in a Tesla to do some work at my house, and I was like,
Lost the car.
No. I mean, it wasn't a cyber truck. So I was like, how long you had the car? Because this is how I'm coming in. How long? A few years. I had a few years. I said, okay. All right. You had before you knew what it was. And, not everybody's getting rid of it. But, there's this notion that, I've been seeing some posts from black men in particular, that this is what needed to happen, and there's a part of me that's also like, yeah, maybe this did need to happen. Maybe there's an opportunity in this, because when I think about what does government do, for those of us who need government, for those of us on SSI, for those of us who get free lunches, for those of us who need the programs, right? SNAP, WIC, for those of us who need government, FEMA, if there's a natural disaster, our public schools, we're about to find out. But I'm also thinking, being a quasi armchair student of history, there was a time when, like, my grandmother didn't have social programs to make sure she ate. My dad, actually, growing up in the 1940s in Newark, did not have a social program. They didn't even have a refrigerator.
Right.
He sold watermelons with his brother at 7 and 9 on the back of a truck in Newark, right? Like, child labor there were no laws protecting he and his brother. They worked in a chicken store, as under the age of 10, okay? There were no social programs that saved us, but somehow we figured it out. And then came these social programs. So there's an argument that we can make that the dismantling of our government might actually provide an opportunity, because there's nothing we could do about it at this point other than have our Congress people show up and do what they're supposed to do, which, we can argue about whether they are, they aren't. Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're out there holding hands and having rallies, but the rallies ain't changing nothing, right? And they're not checking this mother freaker, right? So I'm sitting here like, okay, for us, for me, myself, shout out to Michael and Nubia. For me, myself, I feel like it's important for us to find that not just the silver lining, but the opportunity to build the next thing. We know HBCU, some of them are going to be closing their doors. This is an opportunity for maybe some consolidation to come together and pool resources, and for us to start thinking differently about what it means to be educated.
Well, I mean, also, I think it has this idea, Karen, that we have, since the 1960s, there's this idea that, we can do that. We are embracing the bootstrap mentality, right? This is what Americans have been doing. I mean, this happens in, with Black people, with Latino people. This happens in a lot of communities. Like, I don't need the help. I can do this myself, right? But we have never in a successful society, done anything one-on-one. The great man theory of this is, I hope that this point in time puts to rest the great man theory of history and social change, because it wasn't Dr. King. It was all of those other people that were around him that were putting stuff together, right? It wasn't just Marcus Garvey. It was all of the people that were around him. It wasn't, Lincoln, and it was all of the people that were around him were doing all this stuff. Like, we don't talk about the unsung heroes enough, because the unsung heroes are many, and it's a collective. The only way to do this is collective action. Right. And the only way to get ourselves out of this mess is collective action, is to shrink our circles and make our community smaller. And this is what I've said before. Everybody listening probably heard me say this. Focus on who we can save, and we can save the people that are in our circle. Right. Circle of concern. Focus on that.
At the same time, because I walk and chew gum, we also need to build institutions at the same time, because the chaos gives you kind of a helpless feeling and fearful, and it puts you in a mind frame to, triage, right? Some of us think it's triage. I'm not thinking this is triage. I'm thinking this is opportunity. And while we cannot undo what happened in November, we can maybe build the world that we want to live in. Everybody that had a problem with the two parties, the same bird, and this and that, all of the bull crap, which was absolutely wrong. You were wrong. You were wrong, by the way. The parties were not the same. So stop that narrative. You're a liar, or obtuse at the very least, maybe just ignorant. You're ignorant, though. They're not the same. But we now can maybe build a party. Do you want a party? What does that party look like? You know, I'm hearing a lot of talk, a lot of chatter. Okay, what's the solution? You want another party? What does that look like? How do you start a party? We're actually doing some work in Nubia, how to organize, how to set up different things, how to start a party is going to be another thing that we're going to do. How do you start a party today that can be viable and on the ballots, all the ballots in all of the states, because that's what's required? How do you fund that? What does that look like? Like we need to start asking that question.
I think one of the things that people miss, right? And this is the bigger thing about just the general idea about how politics works, is that people focus at the top. And if we could focus locally, right? And because where do we pull governors from? Governors come from mayor's offices and city councils and state legislatures, right? So if you want to build a party, don't think about building a party to run for president. Think of building a party to run for governor. Think of building a party that will run for mayor. Like New York has the perfect opportunity to create a strong third party system that will create some new and different change, right? With a different type of party. And I'm not saying that it has to be a socialist or democratic socialist or any of those things, but you need exactly what Angela Davis said in the 1980s. We need people over profits. We need that to be the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And when we can build a party that is going to put people in front of profits, then that's going to be the party. But it has to start locally. It cannot start nationally. And a lot of people get it in their heads that it's always that we gotta get somebody to run for president. No, you want to affect some change to help you. Get yourself a new mayor. Get yourself a city council that's going to end the criminal justice system in that city the way it's supposed to. That's going to change the way we treat homelessness. That's going to in Massachusetts here, they have a millionaire's tax. And so that means there's a millionaire tax on all the people that are millionaires in Massachusetts. So all the kids in Massachusetts eat school lunches for free. I remember having that card. I don't know if you had that card, Karen, but that card, the extra card. No,
I was never. So let me just be. I was never impoverished, and I'm not embarrassed by that because I didn't ask to come born into the house. It's like people. I never went to bed hungry. Matter of fact, I ate too much.
Well, I had the free lunch card. And I'm not embarrassed about that because
that's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. I'm not bragging. I'm saying whatever our story is, we got to stop. Oh, well, I don't know how people are going to receive it. It is what it is. Let's just be who we are, say what it is, and let's, be in community regardless. You know what I'm saying? We don't all have to have the same story. It's okay.
I will rep Candlewood Apartments till the day I die. You know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, I had the lunch card. And so now kids in Massachusetts don't have to worry about that. There's no stigma attached to it. And we need to take the stigma out of poverty.
I was going to say, there shouldn't be stigma. If you're hungry, you should. Why are we bullying people who need to eat? Like, it's bad enough that you need to have the card. Now you're going to bully me on top of that because I'm poor? Like, this country is so effed up that I'm almost like, let the damn thing blow the F to smithereens so that we can figure out how to create a more perfect union. Not even a more perfect union. I don't even like that verbiage. Can we build a place where everybody gets to be?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
We need to center it on justice, right? And justice and equity, right? And, we need to center it on non-colonialism and non-imperialism. And we need to center it on, Dr. King's beloved community. This is what we need to center it on. Yes. Like this idea that people don't go hungry and we solve our problems with peaceful negotiations where we don't think win-win. We don't think win-lose. We think win-win and those types of things. And if we could get to that place where we are, just as James Baldwin said, right? Forcing our brothers to see who they are and then change that. Because these are our brothers, right? Because we are humans, all humans, right? And the people the people who are starting to protest at those town halls, the MAGA people, are starting to see like this ain't about those people taking care of you. It's us against them, right? And we need that social solidarity.
Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're going to love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of The Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.